Okay, so this is about the area of spirituality, not religion, spirituality. So I guess looking at the last 40 years of trying to learn various approaches out there in the field of psychology, um, at a certain point, I felt that all the approaches that I'm trying, the ones that have been working, are not enough. I needed something else. So I started to be open to alternative approaches. At first, from professionals who have come from the medical or psychological field and expanded beyond that. And then later on, to whatever I felt attracted to. And some of these I don't necessarily recommend because you could meet all sorts of people. Some are well-meaning, some not so much. I'm just sharing with you what I did. Some of it was messy, some of it was good. But as a young psychologist who was in the academic system, I noted that words like soul, weren't used, maybe with the exception of Jungian psychology. And Jung was a psychiatrist. So he came from the medical field, but he also expanded to Eastern approaches, and he was incorporating these approaches in his work. But overall, the undergraduate course was part of a scientific field. And historically, I know that there's an issue between science and religion. Now, I'm not talking about religion itself, but there are politics involved with spiritual approaches that end up being organized religion. There are politics there, and there's also a tough history between science and religion. The idea is that you don't want to take somebody's word for it. Let's be scientific about it, and let's only deal with what we can prove. Now, the way I look at it today, in terms of all that is out there that calls itself spiritual, and all of that is out there that calls itself science, for me, there isn't a contradiction or a conflict between science and spirituality. When I ask myself, of all the things that I've exposed myself to, what do I like? What worked for me? Even if I can't define it or prove it, to me, good science is about being open to what we cannot prove. And I've dabbled a little bit with the history of some of the scientists, like especially with quantum physics, and somebody like Einstein or Niels Bohr would appreciate the role of imagination. And for me, what I like about good science and good spirituality, as defined by myself, and that's not, easy to do. It's more of a sense of what do I like out of this? What can I use here and there? And again, I'm not trying to put a model out there that is general for the public. I'm literally just experimenting. And for me, what I like is a sense of openness, that there is something that is bigger than me. And it's as simple as saying, well, I don't know how I came into being. You can look at evolution, sure, but what came before evolution? Is time even linear? These are some of the questions that are dabbled with in quantum physics, for example. So I'm not putting myself under any pressure that I have to define something in order to be open to it. I'm literally just experimenting and having a sense of being lost, being okay with that, and a sense of discovery. And when I say discovery, it doesn't mean that I'm finding something concrete and literal. It's just about, in terms of the work on trauma, here there is some intersection with the unconscious. Here is an area where, like I say, I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to sit with it and see what happens. And it's that sense of mystery that sometimes can take me to a blissful state of appreciating existence without trying to understand it. I think Joseph Campbell names some of that stuff really well. I don't have any quotes here with me right now to share with you. But one of my favorite books is The Power of Myth with Bill Moyers, which is our conversations with Bill Moyers. And the sense I get from it is just a sense of exploration. Having said that, I did go to, I met this Reiki healer, energy healer, I don't know, maybe about 30 years ago now. Or, yeah, I don't know exactly when, but I started going to her. I think I might have even seen her 10 or 20 years. I don't even remember. But for the first 5 years, my head couldn't make sense of it. There was something about her, and I would sometimes, like, she had abilities which didn't make sense to me, still don't make sense to me. Like, I give her somebody's name and she tells me stuff about them. But having seen her and kept on doing the psychology work and being open to what she had to offer, it was actually very simple. She's a very decent human being. Some of the stuff doesn't make sense to me. But the best of what I got from her is that I was coming to her, sharing some of my difficulties. And the best way that I can define it is that she would help me polish my heart. Help me not go into this place of anger when I was having so many frustrations, internal and external. And today I also see, as a musician, I see a music teacher who's about 87 years old, who's very experienced, and they're kind of just spiritual music lessons. I don't bring him anything. I'm not trying, although he's got a couple of, a huge book on harmony, W.A. Mateo. I think it's called Experiencing Harmony. I forgot what the book is. I know I maybe can put it under the video. But today, what is spiritual? What is divine? I don't care to define it. It's all a process of humbling myself that I cannot understand existence. I cannot understand everything that is going on internally. And at this stage, I have picked up certain approaches from a lot of the disciplines that are out there, whether these are extensions of Islam, Christianity, or Judaism, or Buddhism, or shamanism that exists in the various cultures. Today, in the morning, I pray. who am I praying to? I have no idea. The prayer itself is just an act of openness to something that is beyond me, and I have no idea what it is. And I like that. It kind of keeps me humble and hopefully positively open. Not that I'm saying that all the spiritual, I mean, I don't know what is out there. Some of it is dark, you know. There is so much that you can call spiritual that is actually dark. I think just my face expression now of not knowing is the summary of what it is to be spiritual. I try to look at the good in every person, and I did have a spiritual experience at the age of 13, way before I got, this is actually what triggered the depression, I think. At the age of 13, I remember I was praying, and I literally felt my chest open, and I had this sense of compassion for the whole world, everything that moved. And that sense stayed for a couple of months. And I remember that I was very focused for those 2 months. And I remember even looking at, a newspaper where they had some coverage of a serial killer and feeling compassionate towards that person. And my mind thinking, does that make, is that right? And then after 2 months, I crashed, and that was the beginning of depression. I read a lot of stuff later on, trying to make context, trying to make sense of all of that. And today I see that there is a huge interest in the West in spiritual experiences and Buddhism and enlightenment and striving for enlightenment, and I've tried to educate myself with that. And there's a really good Trungpa, was it said? It's something about describing some of that as spiritual materialism, as in Buddhism is, is a discipline of trying to develop a non-attachment, which is actually quite sounds simple, but you can strive, and there's so much pressure. Some people put themselves to be in the here and now, and there's so much misinterpretation, of what does it mean to be present. And some of it, as far as I'm concerned, ignores biology, ignores, especially when it comes to the area of trauma. To be here and now is actually very difficult to do. As far as I'm concerned, we are not wired evolutionary to be in the here and now if there's a threat. And some of these approaches, when it comes to dealing with trauma, I think ignore biology. To force yourself to be in the here and now, your nervous system my nervous system is going to interpret myself as forcing myself to be here while there's a threat that is danger to my life, and it will rebel against that. So even when it comes to things like meditation, sometimes it works, but if I'm very triggered, it doesn't work. Sometimes I can calm myself down, and sometimes I can't. If something internally is so charged and so wired not to be here, I don't fight it. So again, it's like anything else. You develop a relationship to see what works. I don't know of anything that works all the time. I'm going to look at my notes, see if there's anything that I need to include here. I just went over my notes. There's a lot out there. There's a lot that I can share, but I think this as an introduction, I'm deliberately leaving it open. And if there's anything more practical that is worth sharing later, hopefully I'll do that. Everything is sacred. Nothing is sacred. Poo-poo is sacred. If you got a 2-year-old child and they do a poo-poo, and it's like, cool, you just wipe your own ass. That's amazing. You know, poo-poo is a fertilizer. Yeah, I got no answers, man. That's because I know everything when I don't know anything. Okay.
You summarized?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're leaving it open.
Okay.
You wanna say hi?
The camera?
Yeah?
No.
Okay.